Okay, folks, good afternoon. My name is Tom Collins. Thank you for taking time out to have a join this conversation today on our new proposed program of the Professional Diploma in Contemporary Taxation. Just to say, I will be recording this session, and just for GDPR reasons, just need to declare that the seminar will be available on our website as well, for those of you who want to have a look back at it. So you're all very welcome. Let me just share my presentation with you. Everyone see that okay? Kieran, you might just, yep, perfect. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. You're all very welcome. My name is Tom Collins, Course Director for the Professional Diploma. I've been with the university since 2007, having previously worked in Big Four tax practice with PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte in Limerick and Dublin, and for 2 years down in New Zealand with Ernst & Young. I've been course director for 3 programs which the university currently runs in partnership with the Revenue Commissioners, from which we've had more than 2,000 graduates over the last number of years. I'm joined by several colleagues from the Kemmy Business School this afternoon, including Kieran, who will speak to you shortly. I have 3 main objectives for our webinar this afternoon. That is to inform you of what the PD is all about and its overall aims, talk to you about the content of the 4 modules and the approach we will take regarding delivery and continuous assessment, and finally, what happens next in terms of progressing an application for the programme or part thereof. Before proceeding with the webinar, can I ask participants to post any questions you may have in the Q&A option on Microsoft Teams, and my colleagues will be monitoring these questions and feeding the questions to myself or my colleagues to deal with in due course. So who is this programme for? If you are already working in taxation and wish to transfer or gain more experience in the international tax domain, this course is potentially for you. International tax isn't just for the very big corporates like the Googles and Apples of this world. Many companies now have a physical or digital presence in many jurisdictions and need to be familiar with and manage tax risks associated with their evolving business models. The programme will take you on a deep dive into applying tax legislation in several practical scenarios. Inevitably, because of the complexity of tax law and its interpretation in practice, disputes will arise. And my colleague Kieran will help you enhance your ability to both understand and negotiate the myriads of complex tax legislation and related disputes. Not all tax disputes end up in court, and a very high percentage, in fact, are negotiated between companies, their advisors and tax administrations. This will require enhanced negotiation skills for both sides of the dispute, and Kieran will talk to you on this in a few minutes. Advisors, tax administrations and companies need to be fully aware of the potential of data analytics and artificial intelligence to undertake their roles in a more efficient manner. Inevitably, technology comes with risk, and stakeholders need to be fully aware of the associated risk, ethics and governance issues. Depending on where you are on your journey in taxation, we can offer you a few different pathways. Of course, you can enrol on the full programme, the details of which I'll go through in a few moments. The programme will run from September to June each year. The 4 modules are delivered sequentially, and I will walk you through the timetable in the next slide. Alternatively, you may wish to take the 4 modules on a micro-credential basis, so that over a period of time you could potentially graduate with a professional diploma in contemporary taxation. If you already have a professional diploma in a business discipline, you could consider what is known as a Masters in 3 or a Master of Professional Practice. In simple terms, unsuccessfully achieving a 3rd professional diploma, the University of Limerick could award you with a Master of Professional Practice. Indeed, we have currently 26 students following this particular pathway in the current academic year. The course structure looks as follows. For students undertaking the full programme, you would commence in September 24 with revenue law and negotiations over an 8-week period. This module is delivered by my colleague Kieran, who will speak to you shortly on the module. Following a short break, my colleague Buckley will deliver over a 5-week period Data Analytics for Tax. Patrick's not available today, but I will play in a few moments a short Panopto video in which he will outline his approach to this module. After the Christmas break, I will be delivering a module in Applied International Tax Law over 8 weeks. Following approximately a 2-month break, my colleague Martin Cunneen will deliver a module entitled Risk, Ethics, Governance and Artificial Intelligence over 5 weeks. This module is delivered to a number of different master's programs currently in the Kemmy Business School. All 4 modules are delivered fully online with a mixture of live or synchronous and recorded or asynchronous lectures. You would effectively have to commit to approximately 1.5 hours live sessions each week with each of the 4 module leaders. The live lectures will also be recorded, allowing you the flexibility to learn in your own time. Details of the 4 modules are available in the Kemmy Business School's Book of Modules, which is available online. However, hopefully our session today will give you a broad perspective on what the 4 modules entail. I will speak to you later in this webinar on the available HDI funding, which is limited to 25 students. The funding is available for those undertaking the full programme or taking the modules on a micro-credential basis. I would, however, point out that there is a cap of 3 places available on the AI module as a micro-credential. This is simply because of the overall demand for this module in the current climate. Before moving to the, so I'll hand you over now to Kieran. Kieran, interestingly, has actually just finished an online program, and I might just ask Kieran before he talks about this particular module as to how he found the experience of doing a program remotely, and some tips for you. So Kieran, I might hand you over.
Thanks very much, Tom. Yeah, it was just, I suppose, to share my experience with regards to the online programs. I'll admit I was not reluctant, but I was interested just to see how a program that was quite practical in nature was going to be delivered and how the online element would interact with my everyday workload. No more than the current program. The online experience is really set up to be flexible and to cater to the fact that you're going to be working as you're doing this course as well. So as a result, it left you the flexibility to basically decide when you were going to attack the material. If it was a case that you had an hour or 2 to spare each night, then that was absolutely fine. You could take it bit by bit. However, as with all work, it can be a situation that you're going to have some busy periods. And again, the flexibility of the online program meant that I could park the material until maybe the weekend when I had a good stretch to catch up on things. Now, the key was that you weren't ever going to be in a situation that you could be let, things slide for the full term of the program. There were intermittent deadlines throughout the course to ensure that you were continually keeping up with the material that was being delivered, but again, with some level of flexibility. So from that perspective, the online experience should be one that will help with your career, but will also be one that will be tailored and will be flexible so that you can achieve it with hopefully without too much undue duress on your everyday life. Back to you, Tom.
Okay. So Kieran, I might get you to now talk through your module, which you'll be delivering in September, revenue law negotiations.
Yep, that's no problem at all. The revenue law and negotiations is the first module on the course and runs over the first 8 weeks of the autumn semester. The module itself has 2 key goals in mind. The first involves getting you comfortable with using, understanding, and interpreting the legislation. This will take a lot of practice, both during and after the module. With this in mind, you will get to undertake a lot of exercises throughout the module, which will help hone these skills. However, getting to grips with these skills also requires looking at more macro aspects of tax law. Such areas would include where legislation derives its power, how legislation is generated, and where does it sit in terms of EU law. All these aspects and more will be discussed in detail during the module. The second goal relates to negotiations, acknowledging that an increasing number of tax appeals result in settlements in advance of any hearings. Now, I'm not suggesting that this module is the answer to all your negotiation prayers, but it will introduce you to some of the main negotiation concepts and how these can be applied in the specific tax appeals environment. So that's just a very brief overview of the module. As Tom mentioned, more details are available online, but if you have any specific questions, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A and we'll deal with them at the end of the webinar. Back to you, Tom.
Thanks, Kieran. I often use the image inserted in the slide to illustrate the wide range of international tax developments over the last 15 years or so. If I presented this slide when I joined UL back in 2007, it would look pretty much blank compared to what it appears to be now. In the intervening period, the extent to which international tax developments have occurred and which have been enshrined in Irish tax legislation is, to say the least, quite incredible. In my module, I will inform you of the wide range of initiatives that have taken place and empower you with an understanding of the what, the why, and how these various changes have occurred and their practical implications for you as an advisor or as tax administrator or a tax person working in industry. Similar to Kieran and to Paddy said, the modus of assessment for the module will be continuous, so that rather than having an end of term exam, which traditional courses might have, we will look at different practical issues during the course of the 8 weeks, which will be very applied in practice and will help you to understand and navigate your way around both domestic law and interaction of double taxation treaties. Finally, the risk, ethics, governance and AI module. Unfortunately, my colleague Martin has been is unavailable due to a pressing engagement that arose this morning. So he's asked me just to fill in and give you some comments regarding his module. His module is designed to help you to understand better the complex aspects of the logic of AI commercialization and business models and the broader social and ethical relations of AI business models. Regardless of where you work in tax, understanding business models that seek to optimize the use of AI is important in terms of applying conventional tax legislation and practice. As a tool, AI is extremely useful in interrogating vast amounts of data to address your specific job task, whether you're working in tax administration, private practice, or in industry. So, to the housekeeping aspects. In terms of entry requirements, applicants must possess a minimum 2-2 honours primary degree. In the case of international students, the overseas equivalent, as determined by the course team in consultation with UL's graduate school admission, will meet this requirement. Where candidates are non-native English speakers, the candidate must meet the university's English language requirements. In certain circumstances, an applicant who cannot satisfy the undergraduate requirement may be accepted based on relevant professional experience, or RPL. This application may involve, if required, a brief interview with myself as course director or one of my colleagues to assess overall suitability. Applications are now open. Whilst we will generally accept applications up until the middle of August, it's important to note that HCI funding is only available for a maximum of 25 students on a first come, first served basis. And therefore, the earlier you apply, the better chance you have of successfully accessing this particular funding. 50% funding is available for both the full programme or to students undertaking modules on a micro-credential basis. There's one small exception to that, and that is in the case of the AI module. If you choose to take that as a micro-credential, HCI funding of up to 80% is available. However, as I mentioned earlier, there is a cap of 3 students that will be allowed to take that module as a micro-credential. There's obviously no cap for people taking it on a full program basis. In terms of application, and you're probably wondering, how do I apply for HCI funding? You apply initially to the normal application procedures on the website. Our team then in GPS will revert to you with regard your eligibility for the subsidy criteria, and if that application is successful, they will reissue a fee offer to you, taking account of that funding application. Okay, so there's only a need for one application. Our GPS department will process that, give you the opportunity to apply for the HCI funding, and on a first come, first served basis, students will be offered a reduced fee position. But remember, it is only available for the first 25 students on a first come, first served basis. If you have any queries regarding today's webinar, please feel free to reach out by email to myself or to Tineke Leonard, and we will be happy to deal with you and revert to you as soon as possible. If you have, as mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, you might just pop them into the Q&A session or Q&A, and I will deal with them. I know there is a couple there already, which I might deal with. Keith, you might let me know what others are put into the system. One person asked me to compare this program to other programs, professional qualifications, for example. It's a difficult question to answer, but let me put it this way. Our aim of this course is to, and pardon the comment, is to develop a good tax nose, to develop a skill to understand where to go to resolve a query. One of the top tax partners in one of the big four firms mentioned to one of our classes some years ago that his tax knowledge was about 15%, but he knew where to go to find the other 85%, whether that was a colleague or to go into legislation, and got comfortable reading a new piece of legislation. I would always say to people, grab every opportunity you have to learn a new tax skill, because taxation, as you know, for those of you, and all of you are working in tax, is currently an iterative process. We have finance bills, budgets every year. We have case law. We have updates to tax duty manuals. We have TACD cases. We have High Court cases. We have ECJ cases. And taxation as a profession and as a career is very much an iterative process. So I would say to you, take every opportunity that you have. The beauty of this course is the fact that it is a hybrid delivery. It can be done in your own time. There isn't the pressure of an end of semester exam. All of the assignments that are presented to you are very practically based. So whether you're working in practice, working in tax administration, or working in industry, those assignments will be of benefit to you in your everyday job. Okay, a couple of questions as well, just in terms of when will the lectures be run? The lectures are, most of the material will be made available to you with recorded sessions. Okay, so it's up to you when you decide to take those sessions. Depending on the module leader, it is likely that for each module, there will be a requirement to attend one live lecture a week. That can vary depending on the module in question. That will typically be outside of office hours, so you're talking about 6 to half 7, probably on a Thursday evening. Someone's asked, how would this enhance the CTA and accounting qualification? As I mentioned earlier, I see taxation education very much as an iterative process. It's a long journey. You will constantly learn new tricks, new skills that will always enhance your career path. What exactly would you be teaching in applied international tax? Is the syllabus similar to principles of international tax? So would you be teaching BEPS 1 and BEPS 2 in details? As you can appreciate, in an 8-week period, it's difficult to deep dive into international tax. Simply, there is so much there. What you will get is an appreciation for key principles. So yes, we will be looking at things like tax reform as a result of the base erosion profit shifting initiatives 1 and 2. We'll be looking at GLOBE. But any one of those could be a full year's program in itself. But what you will get is a sense of appreciation for what does Globe actually do, and at a macro level, how is that achieved, and what are the risks from your client's perspective, or if you're in tax administration, what things do we need to be looking out for? And so it will give you the skill sets on a very broad basis on key aspects of international tax. I hope that answers. What exactly would you be teaching in revenue law negotiations? How different is this from revenue law in semester one? Would you be covering revenue audit in detail? Kieran, can I ask you to
You
talk
can
to that?
indeed, yeah. I get the sense that that question was from the same person that asked you the question on international tax.
Yeah.
What it's referring to is the fact that similar modules were delivered on previous iterations of postgraduate taxation programs. And from that perspective, a lot of the material that we will be covering in revenue law negotiations is quite similar to ones that were delivered in previous programs, which are no longer available. However, I would say that we have added the element of negotiations to it, which is something quite new. Again, we feel that it's something that fits quite nicely in the revenue law arena, given that, as I mentioned previously, settlements tend to be a very, very important element of any tax appeals process, and that a lot of cases, both in number and in value, are being settled before they're reaching the courts. So as a result, this new string to your bow hopefully will provide you with some very, very practical skills to help you along the road in your career.
Thanks, Kieran. Query here, what minimum requirements are there for entry to this course? As I mentioned, the basic requirement is a 2-2 degree. However, we also will allow students be admitted to the program based on RPL, or relevant professional learning. A couple of people have also asked that if I don't have a level 8 but I have a professional qualification, does that allow me on the course? Yes, it does. If you're ACCA or ACA or some other professional body, it is likely that would be accepted as RPL. Will there be an exam at the end of each module? Say if you are to only take the revenue negotiations module, the answer to that is no. There's no exam at the end of each module. So the question is, if I took that as a micro credential, what would happen? Essentially, you will be assessed on a continuous basis over the course of that micro credential. If you were to take revenue law, I hope that deals with that. ACCA or CTA membership due instead of a 2-2? Yes, absolutely. Tricky question. How many hours lecture study would one have to be able to commit to per week? It really does depend on the student. At a minimum, you would need to attend a live lecture for 1.5 hours, albeit that live lecture will be recorded and made available to you. The other material that's made available to recorded material would obviously have to be listened to. That probably on average could be 3 to 4 hours of learning, but obviously in your own time, in evenings or weekends. Beyond that really depends on the student. There is a kind of a metrics for different ECTS credits. Not every student necessarily adheres to that, but at a minimum you'd have to commit time to listening to the live or the recorded sessions, which are probably max of 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours, and then commit to 1.5 hours live session on a Thursday. Beyond that is really up to the student. Yeah, I have a diploma in applied taxation, and I work in with that too. Yeah, potentially yes. It will depend on your relevant work experience and revenue, but potentially, John, that would qualify as RPL. Okay, so for the diploma in applied taxation, how would one submit the online assessment? That's where, Celine, that's where Brightspace comes into place. Okay, Brightspace is the what we call the virtual learning environment. so that you will be notified that you have to upload your particular assignment into a particular VLE at a particular time. And again, how you do that and what the VLE and what Brightspace is all about will be shown to you in the onboarding session. Okay. There was a query in relation to costs. I thought I saw one in relation to costs. The costs are available on our website. So if you click on the GPS link there, Contemporary Taxation, Professional Diploma, you'll see the pricing mechanism. Okay, as I mentioned, if you qualify for HCI funding, the full program cost is reduced by 50%. If you apply for just as a micro credential for the AI, there's an 80% funding available, but very limited spaces for the AI as a micro credential. Okay, as I mentioned, the procedure to apply is a one click insofar as you apply, and our GPS department will come back to you regarding eligibility. And if you qualify and the spaces haven't been used up at that time, which is on a first come first serve basis, you'll be given a revised offer with the reduced fee being shown. Okay, Barry just thrown that up. Thank you in the Q&A. Thank you for that. If you're on holidays on the first week of September, would you still be able to do the course? Yes, of course. You obviously have a little bit of catch up, but all the materials, both the synchronous, which is fancy word for live, and asynchronous, the record session, will all be available to you. So you would be able to catch up. So don't cancel your holidays necessarily, and hope you're not flying with Aer Lingus. Do we get a student card? To the best of my knowledge, yes. Can we access UL library? Yes. You are, for those of you who come on the course, you are students of UL. So all of the conditions that students qualify for will apply to you. Can this course be started in January or the start of any of the modules? I'm not sure what you're asking precisely, Ken, but I suspect I do. The course starts what we call an A start in September. So you have revenue law, data analytics before Christmas. In the second semester, you have in the spring semester, international tax, and then in the summer you have AI. If you were to start the course in January, you're probably looking at doing the course on a micro-credential basis. In other words, you start with international tax and you do the other 3 modules on a micro-credential basis. Hopefully that makes that clear. And again, if anyone has any queries after the session, often something will pop into your mind halfway through the afternoon, feel free to give myself or Tinka an email. Okay, folks, if there's no further questions, just like to thank Keith for being the maestro behind this session and putting us all right, and for huge help and input. To Tinka, to Kieran, and my other colleagues for attending and for your inputs and advice over the last couple of days. Much appreciated. But most of all, I'd like to thank you. I hope you found that session useful, and hopefully I've convinced you to come to us. Some of you I know have been students of UL already, but for those who aren't, I hope you might come and join us in the not too distant future. I hope the weather is as nice as it is in Limerick today, where you are. So enjoy the sunshine for the short summer that we might have. All right, folks. Thanks very much. Take care.